Okay, Pops at Legal Reform. Sorry about the absence, but I haven't been well. Plus the fact that I'm handicapped. I don't live in a handicap-friendly place, and I use wheelchair mostly. But since I can't use it here, I use crutches, forearm crutches, canes, and that doesn't work all too well. And I've fallen a few times and gotten hurt. With that aside, let's move on to legal reform. Okay, I added some posts since the last video I made. And you got to understand, these aren't just, this isn't my opinion. This is a matter of fact, a matter of law. You can use everything here to state your case, all right? If you see something I mentioned, you can still use it, all right? Some people ask me about, because some states don't have, in their rules of professional conduct and code of judicial conduct, don't have anything that some of the stuff I'm stating. But that's just because they left it out. They omitted it. They just didn't put it there. But it's still the law. So anything I say, you can use and simply state because it's in the public interest to obtain the public trust. That is mandatory in any law created or enforced. Okay, I just added a new post. Remember, legal reform is nothing but legal resources for making a change in the legal system. So when it comes to the rules of professional conduct, the code of judicial conduct, judges don't abide by the code of judicial conduct. Lawyers don't abide by the rules of professional conduct. So you got a pretty easy win. All right. So I just posted this a little while ago. So let me read that to you. Some of you noticed I look over posts on Facebook to get you to come here to legal reform. I was reviewing some comments and made a few and got comments as well. Let's go over one comment in particular. I didn't get a reply, and usually I get their opinion. I give them the facts. For the most part, I dismiss my opinion to simply quote the law. I don't play favoritism when it comes to the law. You get enough of that from politicians, judges, lawyers, and the media. Let's go over a matter of opinion versus a matter of law. I left out some key elements in my comment to inject it in if the conversation continued. Those elements are rule of law, which means nobody above the law, in which when you step into a courtroom, lawyers and judges not abiding by the rules and codes puts them above the law and essentially puts you below it. Okay. So those elements are rule of law and letter of the law. Letter of the law, simply, it's the main staple in interpreting the law, meaning once it's written, must be done word for word, all right? There's no excuse. So lawyers and judges I've been helping people for years, probably a lot longer than most of you have been living, or some of you. And when they try to tell me what it means to them, their interpretation of the rules of professional conduct or the code of judicial conduct, I remind them of letter of the law. And they quit trying to give me their interpretation, because letter of the law means they have to abide by the rules of professional conduct and code of judicial conduct as it is written. Okay, so the interaction below, the interaction is below, and you should read it to its entirety to get the gist of this page. Legal reform. Remember, legal reform is here to serve you. Okay? I'm not asking for nothing. I don't want anything. I just want you to go over what you should know before you step into a court of law. Okay, this is a comment this guy made to me. David A. I deleted his whole name and just left his last initial. That's me, Mario Casares. Listen, there's no need to look me up and send me a friend request or discuss anything with me, because everything you should know or need to know is on legal reform. I'm going to be adding more, okay, to help you understand what you should know. Okay, and it'll help you in and out of the courtroom, quick, fast, in a hurry. Okay, so this guy, David A., quotes Mario Casares. The people who don't care about what's happening to others are criminals, and their disregard and disrespect for others put the blame where it belongs. We have a huge crime problem in the USA, and it's getting worse. People complain that the police don't do enough, then complain when they don't do something. Yes, the pot needs to be stirred against the people perpetrating the crime. Police tend to leave you alone if you're not breaking the law and causing problems for others. It's foolish. Now, this is, I thought, was an outlandish statement. It's foolish. It's a foolish person who taunts a person with a weapon, a badge, and authorization to use force. Okay, now here I am replying. David A., I'm guessing we agree on one thing. All crime matters. You said the police tend to leave you alone if you're not breaking the law or causing problems for others. I have to disagree. Not too long ago, a cop stopped me crossing the street and insisted he saw me selling drugs. Actually, I gave this guy a cigarette, and I was trying to cross the street. Went to get a Pepsi. He asked me for a cigarette. I gave him a cigarette. I asked him if he wanted a bottle of water because he was outside working. He said, yes, I got him a bottle of water. When I came back, I gave it to him. I was drinking my Pepsi, sat to smoke a cigarette. He asked me for another cigarette. I gave it to him, and then I got up and went my way. Not long ago, the cop saw me crossing the street and insisted he saw me selling drugs. He said I was high because I was walking funny. I confronted him about his bias, prejudice. He said he wasn't being a bigot, and I disagreed. My funny walk was because of being disabled. I let him go through my pockets under duress. I informed him he was violating the law by doing what he was doing. I brought up the Terry stop law. That's a stop and frisk. As he was going through, I'm pretty good with that. Stop and frisk to me, they can only pat you down. They can't go through your pockets, your wallet, make you take off your shoes, your socks. The Terry stop is specifically to see if you have any weapons. So I informed him what he was doing was violating the law by doing what he was doing. I brought up the Terry stop law. As he was going through my wallet, I said, look at my ID. It showed my handicap status. He demanded to know where my money was. I said, in the bank. I told him I had cops take my money one too many times in all my years, so I only carry what I need, which I went to not just get a Pepsi and smoke a cigarette, but I went to get cigarettes, Pepsi and some cigarettes. And like I said, I know better than to carry an exuberant amount of cash on me, because long before asset forfeiture became a law, I had that happen to me a lot. And they go through my pockets, my wallet, while I'm up against the car, handcuffed. They unhandcuff me, let me go, and after they take off, I find my wallet is empty. So I make a habit not to carry money, just a little bit. So I only carry what I need. He started pulling me backwards by my belt, nearly knocked me down. Now, mind you, I was walking with forearm crutches or my canes. I forgot which one. It was either one. So I was having a difficult time. He nearly knocked me down. It wasn't until someone pulled over and started recording that he cooled his jets. Okay. Before he cooled his jets. He didn't find drugs or money, which I'm sure is what he was actually looking for. He got upset because I was nonstop insulting him. His backup was laughing. His backup showed up after I was telling him off. His backup was laughing their ass off by my comments. He jumped in his car and took off. I showed his backup my ID, showing my handicap status, and discussed the Terry stop law, my Miranda rights, and how their co-worker was a dick. They couldn't stop laughing at the time. I was in denial of needing a wheelchair and was struggling beyond compare. I gave in and had my doctor give me give me a prescription for the wheelchair. Only 6 operations thus far, but it drove me to move. I had cops pull up to my house, demanding to know what my kids were doing in the yard, until I came out and demanded to know what he was doing there. He mentioned the curfew, and I mentioned it didn't apply because they and their friends age, weren't required a curfew. They were too old to be held by it. Another cop wanted me to be a confidential informant, a rat. You know what happens to rats? Snitches get stitches. So another cop wanted to be a confidential informant and said I did things. If I did things, things wouldn't go so bad. He was insinuating that I could get arrested for something. So if I didn't do what he wanted to, then something would happen. I was handicapped. I was a handicapped grandpa taking care of my dad, and he was having a harder time than me. He actually wanted me to find out things about a neighbor that was giving other neighbors a hard time. I told him to have those neighbors give a statement and whatever. He said no, they were good people and didn't want their lives disrupted. It was supposed to be disrupted. Uh, some local kids were giving my kids problems because they wanted us to move from the neighborhood. We called the police. They gave us the age-old excuse that they were good kids protecting the neighborhood. The cops eventually arrested those kids because they tried to run over my son, crossed the street, and jumped out and tried to stab him. Those guys got cut loose because a cop went to court for them. Those guys eventually moved because I found out everything I could about them. My kids got places of their own. Dad passed away, so I moved because of constant police harassment. It's a southwest suburb of Chicago. I didn't move far, only to another suburb closer to the specialist treating me. When I went to look for a rental, I was followed by the police. When I got off my trike, I went straight to the police and introduced myself. They parked a few spaces from me. I asked if they lived there because I'm looking at a rental. They said no and left. For 6 years, every time I see a cop anywhere near me, I go out of my way to introduce myself. The young ones are very polite and offer to help me because of the wheelchair. I can't drive anymore because of the pain involved with my disabilities, but still notice I'm being observed. When any of them get confrontational, I mention the oath they took. When cops become police, they take an oath to defend the Constitution. And the Constitution requires them to defend us. The Constitution was established to protect us from tyrannical government and not the government from us. The oath they took to defend the Constitution, I gave them our Miranda rights and recite Terry Stop law and have a recording device going. Body cams are pretty cheap. I have glasses that record in high definition. It's a foolish person that wears a badge, carries a gun, and taunts a citizen with use of force. All laws matter, even criminals behind the badge, on the bench, behind a law degree, need to serve time if they violate the oath they took to defend the Constitution. The Constitution was written to protect us from them, not them from us. It's a shame I actually have to buy multiple recording devices. I had an officer not so friendly take my phone because he didn't want me recording him breaking the law. There was a time people couldn't record people behind the badge breaking the law. It's legal now, and it's helping disqualify qualified immunity. Abuse of power abuse of power has been historically a thing, but that is changing thanks to modern technology and people actually educating themselves about the law. What I learned in law libraries growing up is now on the internet. Ever heard about the Code of Judicial Conduct and the Rules of Professional Conduct? They come in very useful if you ever need a lawyer to go before a judge. In layman's terms, those are their job descriptions. I use them many times to stop bullies supposedly enforcing the law. It teaches them to respect the authority of we, the people they took an oath to protect. Pretty easy, correct? And then here I posted, this is the video of the kid, the guy. He's a kid compared to me. And the cops arrested him and they beat the crap out of him. He's standing there with his hands up. He ran for a short distance because they tased him and they were beating on him, or were about to beat on him. And that's a flight response. When you know your life's in danger, what do? You do your best to defend yourself or get away. So while he was standing there with his hands up in the air, the cop hit him in the legs from behind, and then another from the other side, and he went down. And they were beating him while he was down on the ground, telling him to get on his back while they were beating him. But I've been there quite a few times, getting beat down by the police, and regardless of what you hear, all you can think is putting your hands up and trying to stop people from hitting you. You know, it's just a natural response. And I put the comments right here. If you click here, it gives you the description of what happened, why they were there. Okay. This was in 2016, some time ago, but for some reason or another, it took them this long to release the body cam, and that's illegal. If you check the rules of professional conduct, it's mandatory to expedite litigation, and the body cam is comes with the litigation. In order for the defendant to prove his case, you know, and the state's attorney knew that, and the lawyers knew that, but they tend to drag things on. A failure to expedite litigation is a failure, is incompetent, and failure to communicate. We'll go over those are rules of professional conduct. But anyways, they give a brief explanation as to why they were there. Okay, so if you know that. Okay, so that's. But that was a little conversation. This guy telling me, you know, people are stupid. You know, it says right here. People tend to leave you alone if you're not breaking the law, causing problems. That's a bunch of shit. Some cops do, some cops don't. It's foolish. It's a foolish person who taunts a person with a weapon. That guy did not taunt the police. Taunt a person with a weapon, a badge, and authorization to use force. And they usually get qualified immunity. But qualified immunity can't and shouldn't exist because it contradicts rule of law. Okay, now if you remember or seen one of my videos about it's a historical thing, the Magna Carta. It's the original no justice, no peace movement. Started back in 1500s in Europe, and that's when there was kings, queens, dukes, duchesses, earls, emperors. Not too far from being dictators, if you ask me. But when the royalty established laws, it only applied to the commoners. It didn't apply to the royalty. So they got to do whatever they wanted, and the commoners didn't. And the further up the ladder you went, the less the laws applied to you. So the Magna Carta was originally called the Barons' War, and the barons didn't like the king imposing laws that they had to obey, but he didn't have to. He was taxing the crap out of them, so they threw in taxation without representation, and basically what you find in our Constitution. So in our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence was the established rule of law, and it became more detailed in the Constitution. So the Constitution itself is an elaboration of rule of law. Okay. So, and if you noticed, if you've seen any of my other videos, it wasn't even a video, it was a post where I wrote up my elaboration of rule of law, but that was only concerning the Fifth Amendment, basically due process, fair trial. That was my elaboration on that specifically. Okay, so you should check that out. Okay, this I posted a few days ago. This is from the Rules of Professional Conduct, Rule 3, 3.8, Special Rules of the Prosecutor. This is just a brief summary. It's not the entire rule of 3.8. Now, when you check the Rules of Professional Conduct, they all apply to every lawyer. This is just a specific one for a prosecutor. So there's one extra for the prosecutor. But all lawyers in every courtroom across our 50 states are required to abide by the rules of law. And the judge, by the Code of Judicial Conduct, is required to enforce the rules of professional conduct. If the lawyers violate one rule of the rule of professional conduct, that's cause for disbarment. And since reporting misconduct is mandatory in both the rules of professional conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct, somebody's supposed to report somebody. The judges are supposed to report the lawyers. In Illinois, it's the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission, and have them disbarred. They should be immediately dismissed from the case for violating the rules of professional conduct, and shortly afterward disbarred, because not only did the lawyers and the judges take an oath to defend the Constitution, but they also took an oath to follow through with the codes and judicial conduct, the rules of professional conduct. So the judge is supposed to report the lawyers if they violate any of the rules, but they don't do that. And lawyers are supposed to report the judge for violating the Code of Judicial Conduct, because reporting misconduct is mandatory since the judge didn't do it. The lawyer reports the judge for not reporting them. It's a house of cards. It takes a domino effect. Okay. And that's why nobody reports each other. Lawyers don't report judges. Judges don't report lawyers, because that house of cards can easily fall. But you have to read the Rule of Professional Conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct to understand it. There's quite a few other things I discussed. The oaths they took, letter of the law, rule of law, spirit of law. Spirit of law is simply rule of law. Nobody above the law, nobody below the law. Equality. Equal justice for all. Okay, so it says, this is from the Rule of Professional Conduct, Rule 3.8, Special Rules of the Prosecutor. Every state and federal court has this rule. Now, look up in the interest of justice, which you should. We'll get to that later. It says you can actually motion for dismissal in the interest of justice because you had no clue the rules of professional conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct existed. Then hold them to letter of the law, meaning they have to do exactly what is written word for word to the letter in the rules of professional conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct. Now, this is a brief summary of the role of the prosecutor. Prosecutors are unique, and they have both powers and duties that other lawyers do not. This does not mean prosecutors are any better or worse than other lawyers, but it does result in many misconceptions about the prosecutor's role in the criminal justice system. The quotations contained on this page are intended to shed some light on this role. The duty of a public prosecutor or government lawyer is to seek justice, not merely to convict. Okay, it's to seek justice. Okay, and then I brought up this part. What does it mean that justice is blind? And it gives you this. Justice is blind. The expression means that justice is impartial and objective, which you know that isn't true. There is an allusion here to the Greek statue of justice, which we've seen that, Greek statue of justice holds scales and they look even. But we all know that when it comes to the scales of justice, it's on a monetary scale. You're weighed out according to the gold you have or can buy or the money you have. The more money you have, the more justice leans your way. The less money you have, you're a lot likely to get justice. All right. So the scale of justice is a monetary scale, and if you don't have the money, you've been sold into indentured servitude. It's the way they keep people in the low pay bracket, where you can't get a decent job. You got to understand that, because the more money you have, the less bound you're being. You'll be prosecuted, serve time. All right. So the more money you have, you're above the law. The less money you have, you're below the law. Okay. So justice isn't blind. You know that because you got to sit there in front of the judge, and the judges always say things that are out of hand. That's why they don't want any cameras in the court. So you can't hear how they talk people down. And when it comes to the smiling judge, you got to watch out for that more, because what's hiding behind that smile it's a ruse. If anybody deserves an Oscar, it's those judges and lawyers in the courtroom. They're so good at making you think that they're serving justice, but they aren't. Justice is never served, not correctly. But you have to go over the rules of professional conduct, the code of judicial conduct, to understand it and apply the letter of the law, so they don't try to give you their definition of what those rules and codes mean. Okay, so I put how to file a petition for habeas corpus. Okay, so you click on this link here, over here, and it'll tell you how to do it. Where do I file a writ of habeas corpus? Usually you should file habeas corpus petition with the Superior Court of the county that you are on parole in. You can file a petition by mailing to the Supreme Court clerk how to file a state writ habeas corpus petition roadmap. Okay, so now this is a legal website. They're telling you, I'm just showing you something that was in books. I don't know. I didn't know there was no internet when I was doing this. When I was researching this, I learned at a very young age, when it comes to a courtroom, lawyers and judges trust no one and question everything. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. If you don't do that, you're going to get bent over and hurt real bad. Remember, trust no one and question everything. Okay. Petition to writ of habeas corpus. Here's another. Just click on that, and you can actually get a person out of prison with this. Simply because due process, there was no due process. There was no fair trial. As I explained, not knowing the codes and the rules exist, and in layman's terms, those are their job descriptions. If you open the rules of professional conduct, it's titled The rules governing lawyers and judges. Judges have to abide by the rules of professional conduct as well, because they must have a law degree, a license to practice law in order to be a judge. They have to be a lawyer first before they can be a judge. And then as a judge, they have to enforce the rules of professional conduct in that courtroom. I'll go over the rules and the codes later. It's pretty easy if you ask me, but then again, I've been at this since at a very young age in my life. Petition of habeas corpus is universally accepted method in raising claims of ineffective assistance of counsel. Now, according to the Constitution, you are entitled, guaranteed effective assistance of counsel. Ineffective assistance of counsel is simply put that the lawyers break the law to do what they do, especially in the criminal court of law. But it doesn't matter, criminal, civil, child custody, divorce court, nobody abides by the rules. Nobody enforces the rules. Nobody abides by the codes. Nobody reports misconduct. So it's up to you. You got to have your back like I've always had my back. Growing up, growing old, I never had nobody helping me. I never had anybody have my back. And the people that say they had my back was only to put a knife in it. So I've never had anybody but me and my wits about me. I like to read. I'm an avid reader. I learned to read before I started school. And when I started school, teachers didn't like it too much that I could read. They were actually surprised, asking me, "Where'd you learn to speak English?" I was born, bred, raised in the USA. And when I was growing up, I'm Hispanic of Mexican descent. My father's a Mexican immigrant. He's deceased. And it was deadly to speak Spanish when I was growing up. You could wind up hanging from a tree midsummer, not even Christmas, because you spoke Spanish. So so my parents didn't speak Spanish to us and prohibited us from basically speaking Spanish. But either way, ineffective assistance counsel is cause for disbarment, to have your case overturned, have it tossed out. I filed in 91. Gentleman was in Centralia prison. I think he was Cuban or Puerto Rican. He explained his case to me. I told him I didn't need to know the details. I just filed it based on ineffective assistance of counsel. See, when it was revised in 79, the rules of professional conduct, it actually had that in there, ineffective assistance of counsel if the lawyers don't do, and then all the rules of professional conduct. And that's cause for disbarment. So I was in prison at the time. I was there in Centralia, and the law library there didn't have the books I needed. So I was basically shooting from the hip, from memory, from something I read in 79. And in 82, I got a copy of it. Got the book, or the rules and the codes. I found out what letter of the law was, spirit of the law. Went through the Constitution, and I had some lawyers tried to argue with me. Well, what are you, a constitutional lawyer? I said, what's there to understand? What's written has to be done, word for word. You can't explain that. Explain your way out of that. You got to do word for word what the rules of professional conduct says. And if you don't, you're ineffective assistance of counsel, and the Constitution guarantees me through the Fifth Amendment fair trial, effective assistance of counsel. and that's, yeah, it's down here. Okay, so you got to remember this. You don't even have to remember. You can look it up. Come to Legal Reform on Facebook. Look it up. It's in here. Click on it. The website will pop up. It's legal websites. I get this stuff from the Supreme Court, federal Supreme Court, state Supreme Courts, the American Bar Association, the Illinois Bar Association, the other states Bar Association. Okay, so you should really go through this. Okay, it says, okay, the Sixth Amendment guarantees criminal defendants' right to effective assistance of counsel. Okay, the accused defendant must be assisted and represented by either a retained or appointed attorney who makes decisions about the defense strategy without interference from the government. Okay, so you should click on that and read it. Effective assistance of counsel. And if they aren't effective, that makes them what? Ineffective assistance of counsel. And ineffective assistance of counsel is cause for disbarment. You can have your case overturned, reversed. If you're in prison serving time, that's an easy way out. That's an easy way out. Okay. At the very least, you can get a new trial. Now, if you're guilty, I wouldn't really try it because, the truth will come out. The truth will come out if the lawyers and the judges abided by the rule of professional conduct, code of judicial conduct. So if you're guilty, they give you a new trial, you could wind up with more time. But if you're not guilty, the truth comes out. Then you get out. And remember, there is legal malpractice insurance out there. Not every state requires lawyers to have it. Some states do, some states don't. But even if they do have legal malpractice insurance, the insurance company can file a declaratory judgment and not have to pay out anything for those lawyers or judges, for violating the law because they knowingly and willingly violated the law. You see, legal malpractice insurance is if they made mistakes, but not following the rules or the codes. Those aren't mistakes. That's intentional. Okay, so remember, you're entitled to effective assistance of counsel. Okay, it says the Sixth Amendment guarantees criminal defendant right to effective assistance of counsel. I didn't write this. Okay, I just copied and pasted out of this link here and put it up there, and so you'll get an idea what you need to know. Okay, you need to notice. You have to go through all this on legal reform. Go through all of it. Okay, you can use everything here that will support anything you want to do. This is how you get resolution. Okay, so you want to go through all of this, and you don't have to memorize it because you could print it out. If you don't have a computer or a printer, if you got a computer and you don't have a printer, go to the library. It's pretty cheap there. I did that some years ago when I was first learning how to use a computer and help somebody in a case and got it tossed out. I told them to ask for a probable cause hearing, and that's why so many people are sitting in jail. They can't afford a bond, but if they demanded a probable cause hearing, which should be first and utmost when a case starts, so first time you show in court, there should be probable cause hearing. So if there's no probable cause for arrest, they have to dismiss the case. But lawyers aren't going to do that because, it's, you're familiar with the term repeat business? The more you come back, the more they can charge you. Okay. So if you didn't get a probable cause hearing, you've been denied your right to a fair trial. You've been denied your right to due process. Okay. So probable cause should come first and utmost. I've seen some people protesting and mouth off to a cop, and the cops get mad and arrest them because that hurt their feelings. So they arrested them. And that's no probable cause for arrest because their feelings get hurt. All right. I mean, that's part of the job. That comes with the territory. People don't like you simply because you're wearing a badge. Why? Because they don't trust you. Hey, come on. Nobody's trusted the police since forever, especially minorities. I learned not to trust the police when I was in 5th grade. What are 3 examples of due process? Imagine a result of due process violates example of 6th Amendment. The U.S. Constitution guarantees a right to due process and criminal defendants. This includes a right to a speedy trial and a fair trial with impartial jury. You always go with a jury. You go with a judge. If the judge isn't going to abide by the codes of judicial conduct, you do not. They don't. So you want a jury, and then you want to discuss with the jury the code of judicial conduct and the rules of professional conduct. Besides special instructions of the juror, okay? You want to make sure that every jury you have knows the codes and the rules, and the court should supply everybody in the jury with the codes and the rules, so the jury knows that the judge and the lawyers are playing by the rules and the codes, actually, basically following their job description. That includes the right to a speedy and fair trial, an impartial jury of one's peers. I've had people pick their own juries. I've always advised people to pick their own juries, and they do. And one case I actually kept going to and watched it to the end, and the kid picked his own jury and brought out relevant facts. Public defender didn't want to give the kid discovery, and he demanded a probable cause hearing. So the judge didn't like that, so he demanded a speedy trial. So they gave him a trial the same day without giving him discovery. So the state's attorney and the public defender talked to the kid. Said, hey, the judge don't like this jury trial thing. So if you take the plea deal, you'll probably only get probation. But when the kid walked in court the first time, public defender said, here, sign this and you can go. Kid's like, yeah, okay, he's getting ready to sign. I said, what are you doing? I said, you sign that, you won't even be able to get a job if you want fries with that. Nobody's going to hire you. I said, that's a felony, right? The kid looked, no, that's a misdemeanor, right? Public defender, no, it's a felony. It was for spray painting. But he didn't do it. And they couldn't prove it. So this case carried on for almost a year, and the only reason it carried on so long is because the public defenders got mad that he wanted a probable cause hearing, and then he started repeating me, reciting the rules of professional conduct. I didn't know how to use a computer at the time. He did, but he didn't have the time to take me somewhere to go on the computer and find the rules and the codes. But he managed to get out of it. And I gave him a line of questioning. He gave it to the public defender. The public defender was pissed. So they called the cop and put him on the stand. The judge was mad because they were trying to talk him, the state attorney and public defender trying to talk the kid into just taking a plea deal. First they said, sign this and you can go. And they got mad because he didn't. And then they came back and told him, the judge is mad, he's going to give you time. So I told the kid, you know what you do? You ask for a jury trial. You tell me you want a jury trial and you want to pick your jury. So the public defender was mad. So you can't do that. I said, kid, ask the judge. Make sure it's on the record. So well, the judge ain't going to like that. I says, yeah, well, then we're going to have to go over the code of judicial conduct. And the public defender looked at me like, what? I says, yeah, I want you and the judge and the state's attorney to go over with this kid the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct. He doesn't even know what that is. How are you going to offer to give this kid a fair trial when he doesn't even know what your job description is? Public defender got pissed off. So the other kids, they got arrested with him. We couldn't find them. So they said, the only witness you got is the cop. And I said, good. That's who I want to use. So the public defender, what good is that going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to say? I said, you know what? I want to put my foot so far up his ass, the water on my knee will quench his thirst. I said, what? I ain't going to do that. I said, yeah. I said, you still haven't given this kid discovery. We want a copy of the police report. So they went back and discussed it with the state's attorney. And they tried to talk this kid into a deal, take a deal. And you only do a little time. So they went up there, and the judge asked him, so what do you want, a jury trial or a bench trial? So the kid said, a jury trial. The judge was pissed, state's attorney was pissed, and the public defender was pissed. So they made it the same day. So I told the kid, I says, hey, I told him, pick your jury. I said, you want a jury of your peers? Public defender said, what do you think we're going to do? Go out and look for his friends and have all his friends be juries? Hey, we can't do that. That's illegal. I said, well, we want his people to be his jury. He said, his people? What people? I said, we the people. Average Joe and Joanne. I said, I don't trust you, and I know he shouldn't trust you to pick the jury. He shouldn't pick the state's attorney to pick the jury. You're going to put the thin blue line up there. Thin blue line. I said, yeah, cops, lawyers, judges, anybody that works for the government, their family members. We want to make sure nobody up there is a cop, related to a cop, friend to a cop, a lawyer, a judge, related to a lawyer, judge, family or friends. None of that. No thin blue liners up there. She said, well, the judge ain't going to like that. I said, who gives a shit? So public defender went and told the judge. The judge was pissed, but they let him pick his own jury. So I gave him questions to ask, specifically asking if they're in law enforcement. Sure enough, there was a cop in there. The first set of jurors they brought out to question had them ask questions. Hey, if the cop was lying, would you admit he was lying? No, sir. I stand behind my fellow officers, and there's no way that I would, go against them or contradict them. On and on and on and on. So they were bringing out more. So the public defender said, hey, you got to pick a jury. So I told the kid, listen, you don't have to hurry up and pick them. I said, you got to question everybody that comes through here. And if they don't answer the questions you give them correctly, well, you don't want them. I says, you know what my best advice to you is? He said, what? I says, before you pick one, count to 1,000. Public defender was standing right there. So they both look at me. What do you mean count to 1,000? I says, yes. Juror 1 comes in. Nope. Juror 2 comes in. Nope. Juror 3 comes in. Nope. Juror 582 comes in. Nope. Juror 897 comes in. Nope. Juror 999 comes in. Nope. Juror 1000 comes in. Nope. And then start picking your jurors. Oh, the defender said, oh, why you want to waste the state's money? I said, you're trying to take this kid's life, some of his life time. First you said sign this so he can go. If he does that, how many times are you going to do that to him before he winds up being a 3-time loser? He can get arrested 3 times. You have to sign the papers, and later on they're going to come and pick him up as a habitual criminal, 3-time loser. No. So, but either way, there's a lot, you have to discuss, a lot you should know. And this is just some of it, all right? Remember, due process defined. You want to go over that. Okay, remember about ineffective assistance of counsel, effective assistance of counsel. Why is the Constitution the highest law as the Supreme Court or a higher law? The provision provides a framework under. Sorry, that's my phone. But you'll want to read that. Okay, sorry. Okay, What happens to any law that goes against the Constitution? A law repugnant to the Constitution is void. Now remember, the Constitution is based on rule of law. Nobody above the law, nobody below the law, okay? A law repugnant to the Constitution is void. So you got to think rule of law. How many laws you know out there violate rule of law? Number one, qualified immunity. Qualified immunity. Why are they letting people go that break the law? I've seen so many cases on the internet and on the mainstream media on television where cops break the law, and when they bring them up, they say, okay, I quit, and it's over. They just let them go. That's not fair. I mean, when you got people enforcing the law and writing the laws, do you just let them go because they quit their job? Average Joe and Joanne, if they commit a crime, they don't let them go just because they quit their job. No. So if you're enforcing the law, writing the law, you're representing somebody in a court of law and you don't go by the law, you should be held to a higher standard, a standard that's beyond compare to average Joe and Joanne. If they get time, it should be at least twice, maybe thrice the time average Joanne and Joanne would get. If a cop commits murder, they give him 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years, which we've seen that. No, if you can give average Joe and Joanne, you know, life plus 50 years, you can give a cop, a lawyer, a judge life till death. No chance of parole. Uh, okay, Chief Justice Marshall, Supreme Court of the first time declared unconstitutional law passed by Congress and signed by the President is the intricate system the role of the Supreme Court had been defined. So even though they write laws, you got to think logically now. They really don't seem fair. And you're going to tell yourself, that ain't fair. Well, that's a violation of rule of law. Rule of law is the main staple of creating laws and enforcing laws. Okay. So like I said, there's a lot of laws out there that just ain't fair. Well, use rule of law. Use rule of law. Rule of law disqualifies qualified immunity. Okay. Quite simply put, if you look it up and read it, especially with the Magna Carta, that's the history of rule of law. So you should look that up. I did a video on that. Rule of law isn't just U.S. history; it's world history. It goes back a few hundred years before the colonies even existed. What we know as the United States today. Okay, okay, this is the main part. We the people. Written 1787, ratified in 1788, in operation since 1789. The United States Constitution is the world's longest surviving written charter of government. Its first three words, we the people, affirm that the government of the United States exists to serve its citizens. That's what I've been trying to get all of you to understand. These three words here, that's who you are. That's who you are. We the people. You may walk into that courtroom alone, but always keep in mind when it comes to the people, I am many. We are one. I am many. We are one. We stand by rule of law. We stand for rule of law. And when it comes to the government of the United States, you exist to serve me, not just me, but we, the people. Okay? So there's just a lot of stuff you got to go over. Everything here you can use. It doesn't matter what state you see it in. A lot of this stuff they don't even put in the rules, in the codes. But just because they don't put it there doesn't mean it doesn't exist. If they say, well, we don't have that, you just throw out, well, it's not in the public interest and defies the public trust. No law can be written that isn't in the public interest. No law can be written that defies the public trust. So there's a lot of laws out there that shouldn't exist. So it's up to you to use all of this. All of this. You're going to have to go through all of this. All right. And use it against them. I teach people, use their words against them. That's exactly what I mean. Okay, look here. Not knowing the rules of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct exist. Not caring the rules and codes exist. All right. Okay, whole point of this is you must be the change you want to see in the world. All right. If I can get enough of you out there talking about this podcast, make your little Instagram videos, and I'm not familiar with all that. Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, wherever you can. Use all this. Somebody out there podcast this, all right? I don't know what that is. Started watching one time with that Joe guy, and I fell asleep. This is about as close as I'm going to get to podcasting. I had some people tell me they wanted me to podcast and we could do it here. And I don't like having people at my place because they make a mess. And my handicap ass can't clean up after. Okay, so if you want to see a change in the world, in the system, if we change what's happening here in the United States, the defiance of rule of law by our government, by our courts, we can change the world. Okay, remember, as the United States of America, we set trends. We are the trendsetters when it comes to what the world wants and follows. Okay, if we are the greatest country in the world, well, if we were, rule of law would exist, but it doesn't. I mean, I've made it happen with, for myself and with people that I helped in court, lawsuits, civil suits, criminal court, family court, divorce court. I helped a few people in divorce court. I haven't done anything with probate, you know. Okay, so the definition of public service. Now we'll give you an understanding how things are supposed to work versus what's happening now. It's part of what gave me my elaboration of rule of law. The public trust is a sacred trust. Trust we the people, and it is unlawful to betray that trust. Ask the Department of Justice for confirmation. Okay, so that's what I go over in this video. Okay, I made quite a few videos. The legal reform you need is to read. You must read to succeed, to get over your past, present, and future legal endeavors, no matter the court you appear in, whether it be criminal, civil, family, divorce, housing. I've been to eviction court twice personally and had both evictions tossed out because I used rule of law, cited the rule of professional conduct, code of judicial conduct. No judge or lawyer wants that to go on record. So, you know, it's an easy win. No matter how many times you tried and failed, try and try again. Success is built on failure, and the only real failure is to stop trying. Keep trying. At least this time around, we the people got your back. The power of the Constitution through due process. The power of the Constitution through process will see you through this. Remember who you are. I am many. We are one. I am we, the people. Seriously, you got to ask how there aren't any unions. I mean, not a whole lot of them. Union busting is illegal. I mean, they do that to what? The Constitution was written to serve the needs of the many, not the greed of the few. And so far in politics and law, they serve the greed of the few. So it's pretty easy to remember, right? Don't you think? Kind of easy. I mean, for me, but you're gonna have to go through all this basic obligation of public service, and everybody that takes a paycheck that's distributed through tax monies is in public service, and they all take an oath to uphold the Constitution. So you click on here and open up to a website, and it'll give you exactly. I mean, this was established a long time ago, and after the Constitution was written, right after the Constitution was written, the duty to report misconduct, and it'll tell you, it'll show you that it's mandatory in the Code of Judicial Conduct and the Rules of Professional Conduct to report misconduct. Okay, I gave you the Wikipedia version, but you also find it in the American Bar Association and on their website. Go to the American Bar Association, your state bar association, your state Supreme Court. You'll find the Rules of Professional Conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct, and they both say reporting misconduct is necessary. Okay. Duty to disclose attorney misconduct. Okay. So you can go there. Okay. Click on that, and it'll open up. Here's a link, but you can just click right there, and it'll just open up to the website, which is a legal website. Explain it to you. Click on a report civil rights violation. Now you got to understand, civil rights are your constitutional rights. All right. Your constitutional rights, your civil rights, they can't be violated, but they constantly are. If you literally think about it, because nobody enforcing the law, holding up the law, abiding by the rules and the codes, makes the Constitution nothing other than broken promises and shattered dreams. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for any of you. Now, I promise you, you go through all this and you learn it. And I don't expect you to remember it, but print it out. Highlight every issue you want to speak about. And I promise you, no more broken promises. No more shattered dreams. You will read to succeed. I want you to succeed. Here, the Code of Conduct for United States Judges. The Code of Conduct for United States Judges includes ethical canons that apply to federal judges and provides guidance on their performance of official duties and engagement in a variety of outside activities. Now, if you read that, you're going to ask yourself, how does Citizen United exist? How do political action committees exist? That not only violates the Code of Conduct, it violates rule of law. You have to read it to understand it. All right. And it's in layman's terms. When the Constitution and the direct Declaration of Independence, when it was written so that somebody that's semi-literate can read it and an illiterate person would understand. Okay. So they tried to keep it as simple as possible. But when you talk to lawyers and judges, they like to complicate things. They talk in a language you don't understand. You actually need a legal dictionary. You got to memorize that shit. And by them doing that to you, it puts them at an unfair advantage, which violates rule of law. Okay, Rule 2.15, reporting judicial and lawyer misconduct from the American Bar Association, okay? Now, if you remember all those lawyers, who was it? Lynn Wood, Sidney Powell, a bunch of other lawyers in different states filed in court, you know, claiming that the election was stolen from Trump. And they went in there with Facebook memes, opinions. Now, if you read the rules of professional conduct, by doing that, they violated the rules of professional conduct. The judges said, hey, you don't have a leg to stand on. Those were fraudulent and frivolous claims, which is strictly forbidden in the rules of professional conduct. You can't do that. You literally violated the laws within a court of law by bringing this into a court of law. But the judge didn't say that. The judge didn't have any of them disbarred. So the judge is essentially in violation of the Code of Judicial Conduct, and all the lawyers were in violation of the rules of professional conduct. The judge was supposed to report the lawyers, but if the judge did, the lawyers were reported the judge for not throwing out the case to begin with, you know, in the very beginning. As soon as they filed, fraudulent, frivolous claims. If you read the rules of professional conduct, it's strictly forbidden. So you need to confront everybody about this. Good old Uncle Rudy Giuliani, Ted Cancun Cruz. Why did they do this? Now, I'm not trying to be political because I have no bias. I play no favoritism. Because there's lawyers that are in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Okay. And for any of them, the president is a lawyer, the vice president is a lawyer. Everybody in the legal system, anybody that held a law degree, anybody that teaches law, except for me, I'm not teaching you. I'm just showing you things I've read. And now it's on the internet. It's not books. I couldn't afford all these books, but I spent a lot of time reading. The law library was my friend. Books are my friends. The only real friends I've ever had in life. So I'm just introducing you to my friends, and they can be your friends too. People are talking about resist Trump and stop this. Listen, personally, I grew up with guys like that. And when he talks to me, he sounds like my brother. Growing up as a kid, my brother was the life. So were all my older siblings were, and my mom. They could talk and give orders, and I had to listen and obey. And nah, that wasn't me. But so this isn't about politics. It's about stopping people from breaking the law. Okay. So if reporting misconduct is mandatory, which it is in both the Code of Judicial Conduct and the Rule of Professional Conduct, every lawyer out there was supposed to report these lawyers for filing fraudulent and frivolous claims. Every judge out there was supposed to report all these lawyers for filing fraudulent and frivolous claims. When it comes to politics, there's lawyers that are in the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. My dad used to call it washing hands. You know, one hand washes the other. So when it comes to politics, a lot of washing hands there. You know, he was from Mexico and he had somewhat of a dark sense of humor, somewhat like uh, Bob Hope. He loved Bob Hope. Liked watching Bob Hope, laughed his ass. A lot of people didn't understand Bob Hope, but Bob Hope had a complicated sense of humor. And I liked him too. I thought he was funny. A lot of people don't. But, you know, that's a matter of opinion. So that's why I tell you, when it comes to lawyers, judges, you know, anybody in the legal spectrum, you know, they all deserve an Oscar because they got all of you fooled thinking that justice is being served. It's never served, not correctly. So, but you're going to need to go through all of this, okay? You can go through your the American Bar Association, your State Bar Association. You could check your Supreme Courts. You know, all this is there. I'm just showing you where it's at, okay? I'm not claiming to be smarter than you because if you read all this stuff like I did so many years ago, you'll know just as much as I do. Okay, so the judge shall avoid impropriety and the appearance of impropriety in all the judge's activities. Okay, well, not reporting those lawyers, nobody reporting those lawyers for filing fraudulent and frivolous claims. That's impropriety. Not only the appearance, but it is. It's simply impropriety. A judge shall respect and comply with the law and shall act at all times in a manner that promotes public confidence in the integrity and impartiality of the judiciary. Public confidence in the judiciary is eroded by irresponsible and improper conduct of judges. A judge must avoid all impropriety and appearance of impropriety. A judge must expect to be subject to constant public scrutiny or get up their ass. Hey, ask any judge, all judges, every lawyer and all lawyers, why did none of you report these people for filing fraudulent and frivolous claims? Sidney Powell, Lin Wood, Rudy Giuliani, Ted Cruz. I heard Ted Cruz was a lawyer. You know, he knew they weren't supposed to do that. They weren't even supposed to see. Now the judges are supposed to make sure lawyers go by the same thing they do. Avoid impropriety and appearance of impropriety. A judge must expect and be subject to constant public scrutiny. A judge must therefore accept restrictions on a judge's conduct that might be viewed as burdensome by ordinary citizens and should do so freely and willingly. Prohibition against behaving with impropriety or the appearance of impropriety applies to both the professional and personal conduct of a judge. So that means even if he's not behind the bench, he still has to do all this. Because it is not practiced as law, prohibited acts, prescription is necessarily cast in general terms and extend to conduct by judges that is harmful, although not specifically mentioned in the chapter. Actual proprieties under the standard include violations of law, court rules, or other specific provisions of this chapter. The test for appearance of impropriety is whether the conduct would create in reasonable minds a perception that the judge's ability to carry out judicial responsibilities with integrity, impartiality, and competence is required. And those are rules. That competence is a rule in the rules of professional conduct. Diligence, expediting litigation, communication. Just got to read the rules of professional conduct to understand it. That's what legal reforms. This is just, everything's here to help you. You don't want to use some of it. You want to use all of it. Okay? Care must be taken to achieve balance between the need to maintain the integrity and dignity of the judiciary and the right of judges to conduct their personal lives in accordance with the dictates of the individual conscience. In striking the balance, the following factors should be considered: the degree to which personal conduct in public is private, the degree to which personal conduct is protected individual rights, potential of personal conduct or directly harm or offend others, the degree of which personal conduct is indicative of bias or prejudice on the part of the judge, the degree to which the personal conduct indicative of the judge's lack of respect for the public or the judicial legal system. Okay, so I just gave you a whole lot of ammunition you could use against them. Okay, ethics board opinion. There's no such thing as ethics in a court of law. If nobody's abiding by the code of judicial conduct and the rules of professional conduct, what's the need for an ethics commission? I mean, they all know everybody's doing this. It's just that they're counting on you not knowing. They're counting on you being undereducated or uneducated when it comes to what's supposed to happen in a court of law. See, you know how it's played. You know how they play the game, but you don't know how it's supposed to be played. Now, that's all I'm doing. You're giving you a whole lot of stuff to read so you'll know exactly how it's supposed to be played. Everything's supposed to play out in the courtroom. Okay? That's all I'm doing. I'm not claiming to be a genius or a stable genius, but I'll tell you what, every stable genius in the world knows this. That's why they can claim to be a stable genius, because they know everything. Okay, so you're going to go, somebody told me, this is, average Joe and Joanne can't do nothing. That's up to the ethics committee. No, that's up to you. Okay, legal malpractice. So you want to read up on that, because if they don't abide by the codes and the rules and, withholding evidence, not sharing discovery with you, you go over the codes and the rules and all this other stuff, and you'll find out that all adds up to legal malpractice, okay? You're just putting all this together, okay? The judge's ethical duty to report misconduct by other judges and lawyers and its effect on the judicial independence. And I told you, they're not doing it. Otherwise, every lawyer and judge would be in jail, and none of them would be rich. You know what the salary of a judge is? And compare that to their net worth. Really, we need to get the IRS on their ass and audit them. We all need to do this. Confront every judge and every lawyer at every level. Local, state, federal. This is everything you can use against them. Judicial misconduct and public confidence in the rule of law. Okay? Now, you know what rule of law means. Look it up. Just watch. Hold on. Let's get the simple definition. There's other stuff I want to discuss with you, but I see them running over an hour. Okay, rule of law. rule of law is a principle in which all persons, institutions, and entities are accountable the law that are publicly proclaimed, equally enforced, independently adjudicated, and consistent with was it international human rights principles. Okay. But there's a whole lot of stuff with the law, and it's all going to come down to the same thing: nobody above the law. But everybody in the legal system is above the law, but paid for by corporate America. We really got to work on it and get out there and talk about it. Talk to your friends, your neighbors, your mom, your dad, your kids, your brothers, your sisters. I tried talking to this to my siblings about this, but they've always considered me stupid, called me stupid, dumb all my life. Tried to talk to my mom about it. She told me I don't know what I'm talking about, but she's illiterate. She can't read or write, so she doesn't know what I'm talking about. And my sisters, my brothers, going through school, they did what they needed to get by, to make the passing grade. When I went to school, a lot of things I read when I questioned the teachers, I was always told it's beyond the curriculum. Beyond the curriculum. Okay. So you're going to want to just put this all together. Rule 8.3. That's what I mentioned at the beginning. Reporting, professional misconduct. Okay, that's mandatory. That's in every state. 8.3, reporting professional misconduct. When I was going over every state rules and codes, there's some rules that are missing in the rules of professional conduct in some states. So if you see anything I mentioned, they say, well, we don't have it. We'll tell them it needs to be there. It's in the public interest, and you need to maintain public trust. Okay, because that's key in writing laws, establishing laws. Most the rules of professional conduct, they keep revising it. When they revise it, they take out little by little. And in some southern states, they cut it down to the bare minimum. So if you say, hey, well, my state don't have that, well, if you want it, you just got to open your mouth and just say, look, Google it. In the public interest, public trust. Okay, so it tells you that's a law, and you'll find it explained on the websites. I'm doing my best to make it easy as possible for you. Liability for failure to report misconduct. Okay, so you want to get into that, okay? Because nobody reports misconduct. Failure to investigate for trial. The Sixth Amendment article, the Sixth Amendment and Article First require the defense counsel to investigate all surrounding circumstances to report all avenues that may potentially lead to facts relevant to the defense of the case. The cases I was involved in, judges don't like too many witnesses. They don't like evidence. In Kyle Rittenhouse's case, the judge didn't allow certain evidence, specifically pictures of him taken with the Proud Boys after he got on bond. Now that relates to the credibility of this kid, or that kid. Okay. That would show his bias, his prejudice. The Proud Boys, I grew up with guys that are like that, and nothing but a bunch of bigots. Some people, hey, well, you got some minorities in there. I I think the right wing affectionately calls them the assimilated. When you assimilate to, it's, you basically gotta not like your own kind. Reject your roots, your heritage. Bring harm to your own kind. Eat your own, basically. So I've never, if I've ever been biased or prejudiced, it's against the assimilated Mexican of Mexican descent. So I've always held bias and prejudice against the Mexicans that assimilated. I've been told growing up I'm too Mexican and all kinds of different stupid crap. I've been told by a couple Mexicans and other Latinos that the rest of us make them look bad. Them being cops, a judge once, a few lawyers. No, to me it was them that made the rest of us look bad. If you don't assimilate and hate your own, then you'll never get anywhere. Ineffective assistance counsel, meaning, determination, and remedies. Okay, I already spoke to you about the remedies. This will give you more of an idea. Okay, I'm being brief enough, but so I usually don't go over an hour. Try not to. So I'm going to try to go over 2 hours. I'm just trying to explain to you what's here. Prosecution function. Okay, you're going to want to go over that. Primary duty of prosecutors seek justice within the bounds of the law, not merely to convict. The prosecutor serves as public interest. See, it's there. Public interest. A lot of people, when I talk to lawyers and judges that I've helped throughout the years, they always, what'd you say? Made them run away. When I go over the rule of professional conduct, which in the next video, you'll understand. To most people, it seems like a casual conversation. When I've helped people in criminal cases, and I've had prosecutors walk up to the defendant, tell them, this and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. The judge don't like this, the judge don't like this. And seriously, just talking to them, is that fairness to the opposing party? Your communication shows a lack of competence. I forgot what else, but those are basically those words: communication, competence, fairness to the opposing party, expediting litigation. Those are legal terms. Those are rules in the rules of professional conduct. So a lot of people listen to me talk and they're like, well, you didn't say nothing. You just said, fairness to the opposing party. Is that competent? And so just people, lawyers run away from it. But see, what laymen think is just a casual conversation is just me speaking in legal terms. So if you notice in most of my videos, I mention terms like that: public interest, maintain the public trust, letter of the law, rule of law, spirit of the law. Those terms, that's legal. Letter of the law, exactly what the law says. Now apply that to rule of law. The ABA gives you very brief video explaining rule of law. So if you click on this, it'll send this video, short video, I think about a minute and a half. Let's see. Opening for some reason. may not be able to count everything. Just trying to condense this, okay? So remember, reform are all tools you can use. I would suggest using them all. So, set principles and for ensuring orderly uh, and an orderly, just society. Many countries throughout the world strive to uphold rule of the law, where no one is above the law. Everyone is under the law. Everyone is held accountable to the same laws. There are clear for enforcing laws. There is an independent judiciary and human rights guarantee. So, why aren't they enforcing rule of law? That's Supreme Court justices, U.S. Supreme Court, your state Supreme Court. You have to confront them on every ground. Your state reps, your senators, your congressmen, your governor, your mayor. In Chicago, Lori Lightfoot was a federal prosecutor. Kim Foxx. A lot of people don't like her, but she's about the most honest state's attorney Cook County's ever had. You know, she's trying to do her job. People are saying, well, that's not being rough on criminals. But you can't break the law to make somebody look like a criminal. Because the rule of law doesn't exist. You got some innocent people in prison and some criminals that basically get away with murder. Murder, rape, pedophilia. I mean, there's a lot of issues. Everybody's got different issues they want to solve. And the easiest way is to use the words against them. These are their words. All right? It's been written. So let it be done. And the only way it's going to happen is with a proper protest. No burning down nothing, no, you know, there's forms you can file with the courts. Click on code, go to your search engine, type in the code of judicial conduct. It'll give you your state's code of judicial conduct. And then type in code of judicial conduct complaint form, and it'll give you a complaint form. And you use all this. Okay, there's a video in here. I hope I can turn the volume down on it. This little thing quick spin here. My computer's 6 going on 7 years old. It's not a name brand, so you know, my Dell runs a lot better. Go. Everyone has rights and responsibilities. Shared openly and fair. Judiciary independence is fair and impartial. that are certain, predictable, and created open. Some laws apply to you have the right to engage with lawmakers. Come I just wanted to show you what the ABA says about rule of law. Okay. Remember, you don't want to use some of this. You want to use all of them. These are the laws I put on T-shirts. Okay, I wanted to, but I didn't have the money, so I had to close my little thing. But I put the Miranda rights on the front. Terry stop and frisk law on the back. Because you're gonna if you get stopped by the police, you're gonna want to know this, and this is what you're gonna want to tell them. If they want to stop and ask you questions, well, that's entrapment. Asking questions, you have the right to remain silent according to Miranda rights. And if they keep asking you questions, usually they ask you questions, the same question, but in different manners, to get you to contradict yourself, which is a basis for entrapment. They're trying to find probable cause for arrest, and they will use anything you say against you in a court of law. So you're going to want to learn the Miranda, and that'll tell you exactly what to say. Say that and that only. And for them to keep questioning you, let them know that's entrapment. They're trying to establish probable cause for arrest by a multitude of questions and carrying on a conversation when they know you have the right to remain silent. So that can easily be construed as entrapment. And if you get arrested and you go to court, you'll discuss with the state's attorney about legal harassment, because legal harassment is a no-no. If you read the rules of professional conduct, it'll tell you for anybody to question you after you take the fifth or your Miranda rights, that is nothing but legal harassment. To continue with the questioning, that conversation is a violation of your Fifth Amendment, the right to remain silent. Okay. So if the cops still arrest you, well, you talk to the state's attorney, but in front of the judge on the record. But you'll have to go over the rules of professional conduct to get them to openly discuss it. They won't want to discuss it. It'll get thrown out. But you don't want it just thrown out. You want them to lambast and prosecute, officer not so friendly for violating his oath to uphold the Constitution. Basically, the Fifth Amendment, your right to remain silent. When I was a kid, a couple times, the cops took me somewhere, I don't know where, and held me for a couple days, beat the crap out of me to get me to sign a confession or two, and try to get me to tell them where guns were. I was a little kid. I didn't know where those guns were. I wanted to know what gang I was in. I was constantly by myself, so catching me by myself, that was really unsafe. But I would tell them, what gang? You see me with everybody I hang out with on a daily basis. Why didn't see you with nobody? That's who I hang out with on a daily basis. Nobody. Okay, on the left sleeve, the traffic law. Okay, so if you get pulled over for a ticket, they can only give you a ticket and send you on your way. They can't, as far as asking questions, where you going, where you coming from, that's violating your Miranda rights. That's nothing but entrapment to establish probable cause for arrest. Okay, the Constitution actually was Declaration of Independence, specifically that part about we the people, and but that's in the Constitution as well as Declaration of Independence. To protect, and the Constitution was written to protect you from them, not them from you. Mentioned something about enemies, foreign and domestic. I've seen an average Joe and Joanne get arrested for domestic violence, but never a public servant. That's got to change in the public interest to maintain the public trust. Okay, so the pub, in the public interest to maintain the public trust, that's mandatory. That's mandatory in law. Forcing the law, so it's okay. So here it is. Miranda rights, Terry stop. Well, you'll get it. Just you gotta go through all this, okay? Here's me talking about the teacher. Okay, I don't know what it is. Just gotta click on it. I'll fix that later. I'm not sure if I posted it, so I'm doing it again. Any violation of the rules of professional conduct by your ineffective system. It is misconduct, and the opposing party are required to report misconduct. Reporting misconduct is mandatory in both the Code of Judicial Conduct and rules of professional conduct. Basically, everything I discussed. I put here, this is basically a good cop, bad cop scenario. Nothing but a show theatrics for public entertainment. What you see is not what it appears to be, or what you have to read the Code of Judicial Conduct and the Rule of Professional Conduct to understand. Right wing, left wing, clearly the same bird. If you want legal reform, learn how to play the game so you won't get played. The biggest lawbreakers are your law makers. How they hold themselves above the law when it comes to rule of law. Yeah. So this is me reading the Code of Judicial Conduct, okay? And remember, no matter what state you're in, all this applies. Just because they didn't put it there doesn't mean it doesn't exist. They don't want you to know it exists. And remember that the U.S. Constitution is law of the land. By law of the land, that means it's universal for every state, and no state has the right to make laws that defy law of the land, the U.S. Constitution. I don't know if I'll get to that because it's already hitting 1:43, 43 minutes. I hope you go through this whole thing. These are some memes I put up that mean something to me. You know, my elaboration of rule of law, some slight changes. So this is my elaboration, okay? Basically dealing with the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth. But it's all written there. I'm holding you to the oath you took. I come to claim my right to due process denied to me in the case mentioned above. Reporting misconduct is mandatory. Code of Judicial Conduct, the rules of professional conduct, and all parties involved. Failure to do so, so I must do it myself. Can 3, judge to perform the duties of judicial office impartially and diligently. So I just go on and on, quoting the Code of Judicial Conduct. Proceeding before a judge shall be conducted without any manifestation by words or conduct of prejudice based upon race, sex, religion, national origin, disability, age, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status by parties, jurors, witnesses, counsel, or others. This section does not preclude legitimate advocacy when these similar factors or issues are perceived. Okay, so I've noticed a lot of people from the LGBTQ plus part of our community has been under a lot of scrutiny, shown a lot of bias and prejudice. Well, the Code of Judicial Conduct prohibits that, especially in a court of law. So this is the Code of Conduct, the canons that I just copy and paste and put it there. Acts of a judge into mentoring a new judge. Canon 1, a judge should uphold the integrity and independence of the judiciary. For failure to comply. Canon 2, a judge shall avoid impropriety and the appearance of any propriety in all the judge's activities. Yeah. You go through the rules, the Code of Judicial Conduct. It tells you that the judge is to maintain an apolitical status, meaning to avoid any decision based on politics. If they want to talk politics, that's okay at home and private, but they aren't to give public opinions about or make any opinions based on politics. You know, they can't show favoritism because of their political beliefs. Like I'm doing, I'm not being biased. I think all laws matter. Okay, this is what this is about. All laws matter. And everybody should be held accountable. And because of rule of law, qualified immunity cannot exist. It defies rule of law. But these buffoons, Supreme Court judges, got you believing that they could actually do that. And lawyers did that. So that way they don't go to jail for violating rule of law. Through Code of Judicial Conduct, rule of professional conduct will help you through that. You know, and it's the easiest way to get corporate money out of politics because it defies rule of law. You know, because corporate money, lobbying, you know, that defies rule of law because it gives them the power to control the judicial system and the attorneys. And the Constitution was written to serve we, the people, the public. The need of the many outweigh the greed of a few. The few are to spread a little money around here and there with lawyers and judges, you know, and they're withholding due process, rule of law. Misconduct, a lawyer shall not violate or attempt to violate these rules. This is my elaboration of rule of law, and none of this is my wording. I just copied and pasted the rule of professional conduct, the Code of Judicial Conduct, mentioned everything they weren't doing. The lawyer shall not counsel a client to engage or assist a client in conduct that the lawyer knows is criminal or fraudulent. The lawyer can't assist the client and can't do it themselves. You're going to have to go through the rule of professional conduct, the Code of Judicial Conduct. You know, your failure to comply, 1.3 diligence. Let's see, what rules did I start out with? The scope of representation, competence. See, rule 1.1, competence. When I mention competence in a casual conversation, most people don't understand that I'm talking about all of this, okay? Rule 1.2, scope of representation. Diligence, the lawyer shall act with reasonable diligence and promptness in representing a client. No lawyer does that. They like to repeat business. Pad the bill. I forgot the term at the moment. But it's to pad the bill. Billable items, as they call it. Rule 1.4, communication. The lawyer shall keep the client reasonably informed about the status of the matter and promptly comply with reasonable requests for information. They don't do that. The lawyer shall explain that to the extent reasonably necessary to permit the client to make informed decisions regarding representation. And it's required, now look it up, informed consent. How can you give informed consent if you don't know all this? Failure to comply. Confidentiality of information. Like I said, when I talk to these people, especially in criminal court, public defenders, and the judge ain't gonna like this, the judge ain't, they go discuss it with the judge, they discuss it with the state's attorney, and all of them decide what they're gonna use, as far as evidence, uh, who they're gonna allow to testify. And you're like, well, this isn't fair. Well, we're lawyers. I'm the judge. We can do what we want. Not if you take the rules and the codes with you, okay? So I got copies loaded my computer, downloaded it, and I highlighted everything I wanted to discuss. And basically, this is a whole lot I want to discuss. B, a lawyer shall reveal information about a client to the extent it appears necessary to prevent the client from committing an act that would result in death or serious bodily harm. So there's a lot of stuff you're going to advisor, failure to comply. Meritorious claims and contentions. The lawyer shall not bring. Remember, I was telling you about Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, Ted Cruz. They have to not only do this in the court but outside the court. So when I seen them talking about stop the steal and the election was stolen, they can't even do that in public, get alone in court. Meritorious claims and contentions. The lawyer shall not bring or defend the proceedings or assert that convert an issue therein unless there is basis for doing so that is not frivolous, which includes good faith argument for an extension, modification, or reversal of an existing law. A lawyer for the defendant in a criminal process or respondent in proceedings that could result in incarceration may nevertheless so defend the proceedings as to require that every element of the case is established. Failure to comply. But remember, it's forbidden to break that. It's called fraudulent and frivolous claims. You cannot go out there with fraud. They must appear with meritorious claims and contentions. Lynn Wood, Sidney Powell, and all those lawyers, they had all those cases tossed because the only thing they brought to court was conspiracy theories, Facebook memes, people's opinions. Nothing that can be proven. Expediting litigation. Lawyers shall make reasonable efforts to expedite litigation consistent with the interests of the client. Failure to comply. Conduct before tribunal. Lynn Wood, Sidney Powell stuff here. Appearing in professional capacity before a tribunal. Lawyers shall not make a statement or material fact or a law to a tribunal which the lawyer knows or reasonably should know is false. See, so the only way we're going to stop, for those that want to stop Trump, is to stop his lawyers, have them disbarred, and they should be in jail. Because if you or I went to a court and told a lie, what would that be called? And we would give jail time for that, right? Familiar with the term perjury? Failure to disclose to a tribunal a material fact known to a lawyer when disclosure is necessary to avoid assisting a criminal or fraudulent act by the client. Failure to disclose legal authority and controlling jurisdiction known to a lawyer directly adverse to the position of the client, not disclosed by opposing counsel. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff you can use here. I mean, the court system is a house of cards. It can easily be tumbled as long as you go through all this, okay? This is my elaboration of rule of law. Partiality and decorum of the tribunal. Before the trial of a case, a lawyer connected therein shall not communicate with or cause another to communicate with anyone the lawyer knows to be a member of or which the jury will be selected for the trial of the case. You want to read all this, okay? Trial publicity. How much trial publicity was out there? Like when, what was his name, George Floyd, when they killed him. So they victim shamed him. Said the cops had the right to because he got arrested before. Uh, he was on drugs, or he had drugs, or whatever, you know. See, if he was going to trial and got convicted, all those issues are preserved for sentencing. Those are sentencing issues. If they don't wait until then, it's trial publicity. Victim shaming is trial publicity. They're trying to turn you against the person that got hurt or killed. Or, you know, if you got arrested, you know, they can't even tell this to the judge. The judge isn't supposed to know this. So if you take a jury, they can't reveal any of that information to the jury because it would be considered trial publicity. Oh, there's so much you need to know. Special responsibilities of the prosecutor, and they don't do that. The duty of a public prosecutor or other government lawyer is to seek justice, not merely to convict. Public prosecutor or other government lawyers should not institute or cause to be institute criminal charges when such prosecutor knows or reasonably should know that the charges are not supported by probable cause. That's why I keep saying you want a probable cause hearing. First court date should be a probable cause hearing, okay? Simple as that. Here it is. Uh, Public prosecutor or other government lawyer in criminal litigation shall make timely disclosure to counsel or the defendant as the defendant if the defendant is not represented by a lawyer the existence of evidence known to the prosecutor or other government lawyer that tends to negate the guilt of the accused or mitigate the degree of the offense. So that's why I keep telling you about body cam, dash cams. You know how that one I started this out with, took them, it was in 2016, it's 2022. 6 years later, they released a dash cam. Why? The FOP, they got lawyers. I met a lot of cops that were going to school to be lawyers or became lawyers. A lawyer I hired was a CPD and a lawyer. And they wanted to know why I was there. I said, I needed a lawyer. I said, for what? I said, nothing right now. I said, well, what makes you think you're going to need one in the future? I said, hey, I'm Mexican. I got arrested going to school, going home from school, going to work. I went over all this with him, you know, the rule of professional conduct and the code of judicial conduct, and we had a big laugh about it. And that was in '89. Okay, let's see. CDE. Okay, either prosecutor in a criminal case shall refrain from making extrajudicial comments that would pose a serious and imminent threat of heightening public condemnation of the accused, except for statements that are necessary to inform the public of the nature of the extent of the prosecutor's action and serve as a legitimate law enforcement purpose. Okay. I left out a part, which was, let's see. There's a G, E. I left out G. G is if a prosecutor knows